Welcome back everyone to the Hello World guys. This is the first episode of our new series in which we are going to learn the C programming language. I am going to make a complete tutorial designed for complete beginners. Even if you have never programmed before, you should still be able to follow along with this tutorial, because most of the series I have made on this channel are basically for people who know a thing or two about programming. But if you know nothing, then this is the series for you. And if you do know some other language and would like to learn C as well, or just want to brush up your knowledge on basic C stuff, then you should also watch this series. So now we are going to kick off this video with the very basics. What you should understand is that a computer reads its program in the form of binary, like ones and zeros, but it's not very convenient for us programmers to write in that format. So instead what we do is we write in a much higher level language, for example C, which we are going to learn in this tutorial series. And this allows us to write in a more human friendly way, and then a software called a compiler takes that human friendly code that we have written and converts it into the machine code that the actual computer can read. And for that purpose we will actually need a compiler to write our C programs, because the computer cannot run those programs directly. We need to first convert it into the computer readable format. Alright, so one of the best compilers for writing pure C code is GNU Compiler Collection, or GCC. This is originally for C but also supports C++ and a bunch of other languages now, but we are going to basically use it for developing with C. And we can actually, we can actually download this and install it on a Linux machine very easily, because on Linux operating systems, it is basically you can just use the package manager. Whatever package manager you have got, you can use that to get this quite easily. But on Windows, this is basically for is a Linux tool, even though it is open source. So for Windows we can use an alternative called MinGW, which is minimalist GNU for Windows. So we can use this to get the GCC compiler along with a bunch of other stuff. So that's going to be very easy, and this is what we are going to install. To install that, you can just go to and search for their website and download it from whatever you want. I am actually using an older version of MinGW right now, but it shouldn't make too much of a difference if you've got everything installed. Then you can use that to compile your whatever program we are writing quite easily. So once you have downloaded and installed the compiler, we can actually get started writing our code. Okay, to begin with, I am using Visual Studio Code as my code editor, because of course you can of course write C in Notepad as well, but most often you want to use some kind of integrated development environment. And if not even a fully blown integrated development environment, you can also use some kind of basic code editor that will provide features like syntax highlighting and autocomplete and a bunch of other stuff. So for that I am going to use Visual Studio Code, which is one of the most famous kind of these editors, and you can use any other IDE or code editor that you like, of course, and that doesn't really matter, but we are going to use Visual Studio Code for this series. Anyway, I have created a new folder and open that up by you can just go in your file and open folder and open up that folder, and this folder is currently empty and we are going to store all of our files in here. So in order to do that, currently you can see we have got nothing in here, so I can create a new file here. Here we are supposed to put the file name and the C files, and in the .c extension, and each C file has essentially got you can basically call it anything you like. It doesn't matter, because some languages like Java force you to name a file in certain way, but we are not going to do that. Worry about that. We can just name it anything. I'm going to actually name it hello.c, and once you do that, you can see that Visual Studio Code automatically detects that it is a C file, and it will now provide us syntax highlighting and everything else accurately according to C. So with that done, now we can actually begin writing our program here. And in order to get started with, we are going to go line by line over a hello world program, in which we are just going to print some text to that terminal and nothing else. So how do we output something to the screen? Well, what you must understand is that C is just a language, like a mean of communicating. So you can use C to essentially communicate with the computer and tell it what you want to do, but you can't make it like do specific stuff, because a computer's processor can only handle like basic math operations, plus, minus, and stuff like that. It can't do complicated things like doing screen input or graphics or whatever. That is not the job of the CPU. Instead, specific software is written for it, and your operating system generally provides an easy way to do that. And of course, we don't want to like have to write everything on our own, so that's the reason that C contains a large collection of libraries. So a bunch of different files that C comes with. So there are other programmers have basically written it. The ones that wrote the operating system have implemented the APIs, and everything is implemented in a way that we can use it easily without having to go through any hassle or anything. So essentially we have got like a bunch of libraries in C that we can use instead of having to like write our own code for literally everything we need to do. So in order to use a library, what we can do is we can go ahead and say hashtag include, and this is a preprocessor directive, but you don't need to worry about these things too much. We will go into detail about everything later. For now we are just getting our program running. So we can go ahead and say hashtag include, and you can see Visual Studio Code is auto completing for me. And here this symbol basically tells, as the name suggests, to include a specific file in this, so that we can use its functions as well. So we can go ahead and add like a angle bracket here, and in here we need to enter the name of the file. Well, the name of the file that we need to use is called stdio.h. And the reason it's actually called this is because std is short for standard, and io means input output. So this is basically the standard input output thing, and this .h in the end. And the reason it's .h is because this is a header file, and all header files end in .h. And if you don't know what a header file means, don't worry, we'll get to that of course as we go along with the tutorial series. But for starting, you don't need to worry about these things too much. Just remember, you need to put this line if you want to print something to the screen. Now let's go down and try to write some actual code, and you can add as many empty lines between this as much as you want, and these white space doesn't actually matter in C. I can actually go ahead and remove this here and it will still work. So I'm going to now go in here, and a program in C is composed of multiple different functions. A function is basically just like a block of code that does something very specific, and we can have different kinds of functions. We can you can put as many functions as you want in your C program, of course, but there you must have at least one function which is called the main function. What this function does is that it is essentially the function that starts executing when the program opens. So when you run the program, it starts executing from the main function, and that function can use any other functions that we want. So we must create a main function or this will not work. In order to create a function, we can go ahead and say int here, and don't worry about anything here too much. We will discuss all of the details later. Just remember, you need to say int and then the name of the function, which one of the function, remember, needs to be main, so we are going to call it main. And then you need to put a pair of parentheses here, because well, we'll get to, as I said, the detail, we'll get to that later. And then this is basically the function declaration. We have made the function, like the function's name and stuff, and now we need to go ahead and put these curly brackets here. And what that would allow us to do is that we can put anything here, for example any other functions or whatever we like, and this code will now be executed. So this here, from here to here, is the body of the function. This is what the function actually contains, and this is the like header of the function, and this is actually known as the signature, but don't worry about that. We'll as I said, go into the details later. Just remember that whatever we put in here is going to be executed as the program starts. So with all the setup out of the way, now it's time to actually print something to the screen. Now, as I said, programs are composed of functions, and you work in functions by calling other functions. So in, for example, the main function we are right now, we can now call other function, another function, to do something that we want to do. And the function we want to use is our call, as we say it. So you need to the function that we want is called printf. So if I say printf, and then this is a function that puts something to the screen. And the way you use a function or call a function in C is that you first of all say the function's name, and you can of course only call functions instead of other functions, but don't complicate yourself with that too much. So just inside of the main function, in order to use another function, we just say the function's name followed by a pair of parentheses like that. And then yeah, that's the way to call a function. But you can see it's still giving us errors, and the reason it's not working is because of this function requires some particular values to do something, because some functions just function on their own, but some functions require us to give them some values, and they will put some like output or some text or whatever we want to do. And this function, as we said, is essentially print something to the terminal. So if we want to like write something to the screen, then we use this function, and we need to tell it what to write. So in order to do that, we want to of course write some text, and whenever you need to write some text, and this is known as a string in C, whenever you want to write a string, you should put like a double quote here, not a single quote, a double quote. And once you put that, we can put anything we like inside of here. For example, we can say hello world, and you can like put anything you like here, and that is the text that is going to be printed. And in this is essentially a statement. So what that means is that this does some work, and this is a statement. And whenever you are using a statement in C, a statement must end with a semicolon. So if you don't put the semicolon here, it will give an error. So we need to end this with a semicolon. Now if I do that, this will actually work, but there is one problem. When the program finishes writing hello world, it will actually not move to the next line. Instead, it will keep at that line, and the next program that will run will start executing from that line, and it will cause not so beautiful results. So we want the after writing hello world, we want to move to the next line. In order to do that, you use a special kind of character here, and what you do is you put a backslash. After you put a backslash, you can put n here, and this backslash n essentially tells is to go to a new line. So n for new line, and this should make the cursor move to the next line. And this is all we need for our hello world program. Now we can get started running it and seeing if it works. And if you don't understand everything, don't worry, this was just a setup and test so that we can see if it works, and we can go into the details later. So we have got hello.c here. So now in order to compile, you can of course use like, so if you have got like debugger or another compiler installed, you can use it from here. But if you want to do it from the terminal, you can go ahead and do this. Press Ctrl and then press the tilde key on top like that, and that should open up the terminal, or you can just choose it from down there. And in the terminal, we can run our compiler. Remember that we used MinGW, and MinGW is basically a port of GCC, so we can go ahead and say GCC, which is a GNU compiler, and then we need to pass it our file's name, the C file, which is, remember, called hello.c. So I'm going to say GCC hello.c and press enter. And you can see it takes a little bit of while, and then it creates a file here called a.exe, and this is our program actually. So in order to run it in the terminal, we can go ahead and say // and then say a.exe exe, or you can just say like a, and if you press enter, okay, so you could say that if it was like in command line, but this is actually PowerShell, so you need to say /a. If you do that, you can see it says hello world. So let me clear the screen by putting clear in the terminal. So let's try again. So if you say /a, or you can also put .exe here, it says hello world, which is pretty awesome. Now we don't want a file of name a.exe. Often we want to like put it, for example, we want hello.exe. If you want that, you can go under the compiler command again, and here you can put a flag here by putting a minus sign, then O, and this will this O stands for output file, and we can put like the output file's name here. So we can say something like hello.exe, and if I press enter and then I say ./hello.exe and I press enter again, you can see it says hello world, and we can actually delete this file now because that doesn't really matter anymore. And if I open this file and I open anyway using the hex editor, this is an extension, you can download it in the Visual Studio Code extensions, and if I use this hex editor, what you should be able to see is that this is the actual machine code that the computer is using, while we can write in this kind of really readable format. So yeah, that was pretty awesome, and this is pretty much it for this video. In this video we set up our environment, and we wrote a basic program and got it running. And in the next video we are going to explore more about how to write stuff better to the screen. For now, just go ahead and experiment with writing different things by changing these values here. So I will see you in the next video. Make sure to like and subscribe to this channel, and